that was, right?
Hey.
He's a nice dog, yeah. We'll just jump straight into it, I think, if that's all right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is, of course, the Choki Biki radio podcast. I'm here with the main man, Boris English AKA Borai, the main man of Club Glow.
That's the one.
That's the one.
One of four. We're all equals in Club Glow.
Nah.
I'm not going to pull rank on any of this thing. You would call me which is you call all of us a founding member.
A founding member, most definitely. And you, of course, are Bristolian. I've recently just moved to Bristol.
Hey,
I'm
welcome.
now. Thank you. I'll see you later, though. I'm heading.
Yeah,
off to
technically,
London.
I'm not. But to be Bristolian, you have to be born here. I was technically not born here.
So you're a fardener.
Exactly, but my dad was born here, and my parents moved back when I was less than 1.
Wow, you sound like one of those Americans that's like, "Oh, I'm Irish."
Yeah, right. So technically, as far as I'm concerned, I'm a Bristolian, and I've lived in Bristol all my life. I've not known anywhere else. I grew up here.
You kind of got a Bristol accent. You're a DJ.
I do, and I can put it on if needs be. And there is a real Bristolian accent, which is very thick.
Absolutely.
And very Bristol.
It's kind of Cornish, isn't it?
It's very southern. Yeah, it's its own thing. It used
Vicky
to
Pollard.
be. It used to be, and you could probably do the same. Maybe you can do the same in Dublin, which is I used to be able to tell exactly where in the city you were from
Gotcha, boy.
by your accent.
Well, that's impressive.
Right?
That is impressive.
It's less now because people move around different and things have changed.
Everyone's from South London here.
Well, there's that too, right? But if you talk to me in a Bristolian accent that was the one that you grew up with, I used to be able to tell you exactly if it was a Keynsham, if it was because Hartcliffe sounds different from Southmead, that sounds different from Bedminster, that sounds different from Knoll, that sounds different from Knoll West. They're all
crazy.
slightly different in their twang, and once you got to know them, because I grew up here, you can recognise them.
I used to know a guy who could recognise people's house number by their accent.
That is a skill, right?
Yeah.
Whoa, wow.
You could dox people instantly.
That's some trickery going on there. Yeah, amazing.
But anyway,
yeah, Bristol based, Bristol, grown up. I grew up here in the 90s.
it's kind of in your blood.
It is, yeah. I'm a big fan of Bristol music and Bristol culture and Bristol as a city. So I'm quite a champion of it.
Big time, absolutely. And I mean, so your background. Let's go all the way back to when you started. You started back first with drum and bass. Am I right in saying that?
Really. I mean, in terms of music that I got into, Bristol's a big drum and bass city. It was kind of cited as the
Mecca,
the second home of drum and bass after London.
right?
Starts in London. London's kicking it off. Bristol gets hold of it, gets wind of it quite early. People in Bristol think, hey, this is cool. I'm going to get involved in that. They're traveling up to London to meet these people, and taking their music and having a go. And they're also putting parties on in Bristol and encouraging others to do the same. So Bristol has had a very deep history, pretty much from kind of drum and bass and jungle's inception. You could easily cite that, what's the first and where's it come from, but Bristol's been there since the early days. And so when I was growing up, when I was going to school, that was what the cool music was.
Really,
it was drum and bass. It was the crews that was full cycle. So Ronnie Size, Die, Suv, and Crust. And then there were other crew, Bristol crews. Another big one was called Roughneck Ting. They're still going actually. They've kind of had a resurgence again recently. DJ Daisy. And also that was Marky Substance and
class.
Darren Dakota.
Class.
So Substance and Dakota, DJ Daisy and MC Jakes was also involved with them.
TC.
Exactly, absolutely. He's still around. Jermaine, he still lives in Bristol.
He's the guy who
doing
introduced me to Jake's, of course.
Yeah.
That big one.
Yeah.
Titanic.
Absolutely, mate. He's a banger. And so when I was a kid, that was what was cool.
So when you say that was what was cool, was that what the cool kids were listening to, or was that what...
There were two lots in Bristol. So Bristol was kind of in...
I know that's a stupid question, by the way.
But no, I know what you mean. I mean, I know exactly what you mean. It was like there were two tribes.
Right.
There are others as well, but really what you had was the kind of indie scene.
Yeah.
So that were people who were the indie bands, and live music, and guitars, and whether or not that turned into Oasis and Britpop and that kind of stuff. But you had there's a lot of history of bands in Bristol.
Big time, Portishead.
And then there's the kind of club side. And for me, that was what I got into. My brother got into bands and stuff, and I didn't. He's my brother, so I'm like, I'm not going to be into the same thing he's into. I'm going to get into this, which he doesn't like. This jungle music.
That's kind of same here, actually,
right? And
enough,
so, and there was techno, and there was house, but because of by the times that I was starting to hear about it, those crews had already made quite a big splash with regards to Bristol. They were like the next Bristol sound.
Yeah.
And so that was what I got, they were our local heroes.
Gotcha.
They, and you might even see them in the record shop. Like,
it's
DJ Crust buying his records. It's running size. And so, and that was fueled by independent record shops. And the area where I went to school was in the same area where all the cool independent shops were.
Gotcha.
So where all the clothes shops and all the record shops and all the cool kids and all the skaters. Bristol had a big skate scene,
of course.
So there's a big hip hop scene in Bristol as well.
Yeah. Graffiti as well.
Graffiti is a big thing. So there's very much a big street culture and thing, and has been. And in the 90s, you got the Bristol sound, and so you got Massive Attack. At the same time that I was listening to like Bristol music in Bristol, we were also,
getting heard worldwide.
Getting heard, Portishead, Massive Attack. People saying about that. Yeah, I'm from Bristol. Yeah,
Goldie.
Yeah.
I
know that kind of thing. But yeah, particularly bands from Bristol is Red Bristol. So naturally, I fell into the kind of drum and bass. It was drum and bass by the time I got into it. Kind of the tail end of jungle.
Gotcha.
And into drum and bass. There was this kind of switch where.
The Aladdin to Aphrodite switch.
Kind of. It was like it was jungle had been tainted by other people who had an idea of what they thought it was.
Gotcha.
And to them it represented violence and gang culture.
Right. Okay.
And especially violence in the dance, which wasn't always true. I mean, there were cruiser gangsters all going to certain nights or shooting, dealing lots of drugs and being nasty to each other in some places.
Still
of course,
is.
you can't deny that. But what happened is jungle kind of got unfairly so and racistly so, I would say.
Yeah.
Is it got tarred?
Yeah, we
with
were
this kind of bad.
This.
Jungle is bad. Ragga jungle is the worst.
Yeah.
Especially ragga jungle was really big.
Yeah.
So it was that Jamaican influence and that people didn't like.
Yeah.
And it was perceived to be bad music for bad people.
Gotcha.
Right.
Which made it fucking class.
Which made it, which was amazing, right?
So cool.
What are you talking about? These people are brilliant. These nights are amazing. I mean, there's definitely, there was definitely a crack element and a drugs element that got involved in the big parties and some big gangsters running some big fucking shady nights with some shady shit that happened. I mean, there really was, but there was definitely a kind of like public perception that jungle is bad.
Yeah.
So a lot of the people who were in the scene,
you kind of need. Sorry to interrupt you. You kind of need that to really foster a genre, in my opinion. Like if you look at any of the genres that have exploded in the 21st century, it definitely is that. It's cool to listen to. You don't want your parents knowing you're listening to it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So hip hop, like I often
hip hop with its swearing.
Drill now, for example.
Drill.
Cool.
Yeah, drill's massive.
And that's
and very
a perfect example of it.
Yeah.
I always call it cosplay.
Yeah,
I'm gonna get fucking shanked now.
Well, that's it. I mean, and some of these people, they do live that life, and actually, they're more about that life than they are about the music.
100%. I work with a few lads.
Yeah, the clever ones will use music as a way to get out of that life because they can actually negotiate that life that they've grown up in. That is, that if you're not careful and you can fall into some bad shit. But music can be a way that you can gain respect. And you can get an out, much like boxing is another way. It's like there's two ways. It was always music and boxing, and it used to be like you could get journalism and writing, but that doesn't happen now. There's no working class writers anymore. They're journalists. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
Yeah.
But boxing was very much, and music is the MCing or DJing and that, and you can't a crew and a party, and you get known for not being gangsters, but you still get the respect because what you're doing is considered cool. Yeah. So you can kind of be left alone and you're not picked on or whatever.
There's a monetary element there as well.
There's that too, right? You can make money doing that, so you don't have to make money selling shotting on the streets, which is a lot of people's only way of making money.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned boxing because I love boxing.
Yeah, everyone does, right? It's tribal.
Yeah,
it just goes to that what somebody I heard describe as the monkey brain, which is like that deep place. I'm a very, very, very non-violent person in my life and generally, but the moment I start watching two guys or gals slug it out,
you're like,
you just something deep happens. It's like
big time.
This is good. Wow, this is amazing.
But it's funny.
It's fabulous.
Moving here to Bristol, like I know I don't look like I do boxing.
I mean, everyone's different.
I eat a lot of spice bags and I produce music. By the way, anyone who doesn't look like this, right, and they say they're a music producer is obviously using a ghost producer. That's how you can tell, by the way. If they look like they go to the gym, they're not producing music.
So it's that and what I call a studio tan.
yeah.
Right?
Pure white.
Yeah.
Or
pasty,
just the monitor.
Pasty, doughy.
Yeah.
Porch.
Doughy is exactly.
Like,
big bunch of doughboys.
Too much time sat on your arse.
Yeah. But I remember here, first of all, I moved to Bristol obviously because of the great drum bass scene, and I always wanted to be a drum bass producer, and maybe I am. Who knows? Secret identities and all that.
Absolutely.
But the other thing was the boxing culture, and the first day I joined up to a boxing club here, was down in Easton. And the instructor comes in with a boombox, and he starts blaring Retreat by Jason Status, and he just goes, R.I.P. MC Skibbity. And I was like, I'm home. It was amazing.
Well, there we go, right? Yeah, there's a great boxing culture at Bristol. There is. I've known quite a few lads over the years who've kind of, and I lived next door to, there was, I can't remember his name. He was one of the local heroes who did quite well in one of the flyweight or the lighter. He wasn't heavyweight. He was a young whippersnapper of a guy. I can't remember his name, but he had a girlfriend or a missus that used to live 5 doors down from my family home. So we used to, and he had his name all over his car.
Class.
So I used to watch about him, see him on the telly, and then suddenly he would be there like, oh yeah, he lives near me.
Oh man, that is
but yeah,
tough.
it was his wife, I think, or his wife to be, his girlfriend at the time.
So
I can't remember his name. I cannot remember his name.
It'll come to you.
It will come to me at some point. But yeah.
So just getting back to when you were talking about it being cool in school.
Yes.
So that's kind of what you mean. Like it wasn't like just the nerdy kids were into it. It was very much like it was kind of cool to be into jungle and kind of cool.
I think so. I mean, and yeah, definitely, because you also got
everyone wanted to be a drum bass DJ. Right?
Yeah, everyone wants to be a drum and bass DJ, and as you got this kind of switch from ragga jungle into drum and bass, Bristol did it maybe start to develop its own sound. You start to develop this kind of like what I call Bristol rollers. Yeah, it's very much a certain kind of like full cycle sound. Roughneck Ting were doing a bit of it as well. Theirs was a little bit more kind of like jump uppy, but in a good way.
Yeah. It's funny how you have to clarify that now. The jump up is
also there's because also jump ups. It's one of those things where it's come back to become another genre that's got nothing to do with the original genre.
Kind of like
jump up was called. Because to me, jump up is Aphrodite.
Wow, yeah, I remember you saying that to me, and I'm so shocked.
To me, the original jump up, the early jump up, was what we called jump up back when it was out. Was the two-step, very Aphrodite, Aphrodite, Urban Takeover Records, anything on Urban Takeover, and then you get into that Joker Records, Busy Bee and Pugwash, and you get a lot of the, and they're a bit more kind of like one finger bass lines, and quite simple, very two-steppy.
I love it.
And then you compare that. So if you listen to that came out at the same time as something like On Metalheads or like some deep fucking Dakota shit. Some really techie, they're very different, and so jump up is like clown music, like oh no, we want to be into the really headsy stuff with all the cool shit, not that easy, like you're just running it out, which is a lot of the attitude at the time. So jump up was like a dirty word.
Hilarious. I remember,
but it meant a certain thing. Years later, and coming to it, it's like I love those records.
It's always
brilliant. Like, that's just like yay.
Whatever you shit on when you're a kid, of course, years later it comes back and
it's like, actually, that's really good.
I'm finding that with like a lot of indie bands that because indie was huge.
You just bypass all that. I mean, me too. Actually, I mean, I spent years just hating on indie stuff, and then I spent the last few years going, wow, this is really good. What's that? Oh, it's something I used to say was shit.
Exactly.
I've had to eat my words out of so I don't do it anymore. But I'm just like, I'm not feeling it at the moment.
Yes, exactly.
Maybe at another time when I listen
you have to be more
into it.
diplomatic with your choices of music.
Yeah, definitely.
I remember playing Aphrodite.
Yes.
Because I got into Pendulum first. That was my first,
Yeah, definitely.
I'm gonna go for.
I mean, if you listen to a Pendulum record and then you listen to Badass by Aphrodite, right? You can. The differences between them are like night and day, right?
Yeah,
it's like because Badass was written on an Amiga, right, with a sampler, and Pendulum, any of the big Pendulum tunes, Shotgun on Safari, anything like that, anything after Volt, was just like modern.
I love the way you say anything after Volt, because Volt was, I'm pretty sure, their first tune.
Yeah. But it's their only good one, right? Volt is the only tune that real heads will give credit to Pendulum for only that track.
Well, that is true,
because that track was groundbreaking when it came out. I was involved right in the middle of the scene when that dropped. You know, we were putting on parties, we were checking what was going on, we were liking a certain styles of stuff, and that tune turned up as a dub plate. And the big guys, people started playing it, and we all were like, you know, and you listen to it now, it's a banger. It is a banger.
Absolutely. And I still drop it. And
it's amazing. People are like, wow, what's that? And it came out on 31 Records, right? Yes, it did. It was on a double pack.
Oh, sorry,
King of Rollers double pack.
What was the Dogs on Acid one? Planet something. That's a band, in my opinion.
Yeah, Planet Dust.
Planet Dust.
Yeah, that's Bad Company.
Man.
Yeah, similar vibes. The Bad Company BC, Bad Company UK, whatever it was. But that's Fresh, Vegas, Maldini, and D-Bridge.
Fresh, right?
So it's Fresh, DJ Fresh, Vegas, as in Fresh and Vegas, Maldini, as in Maldini, had a few bangers in the day, and D-Bridge. They were the four original members of what was then at the time called Bad Company.
Yeah.
Of course, as they got bigger, there's another band called Bad Company, so they were called Bad Company UK.
Yeah.
And then at least half of them started to go off and do other things, so Fresh took over the mantle.
Yeah. And I love, don't get me wrong, I love Fresh, like even his poppy stuff. I actually quite like.
I mean, he's an amazing producer, and he was the real catalyst behind a lot of it. But it's very interesting if you go and listen to that Bad Company, the first album, Inside the Machine.
Yeah,
and then
cracker.
It's amazing.
So
and
good.
It's like and what they were doing as the foursome, and all that style of stuff, and then kind of where it went.
It's incredible,
and it because Fresh kind of took off and took over and went in thing, and the other boys, D-Bridge went off to do Exit, and his whole thing.
I love D-Bridge as well.
D-Bridge is amazing.
Yeah.
You know, one of those timeless producers.
God, I'm getting excited talking about this.
Like, yay! My favorite subject: music and the history of art. All the good stuff.
Yeah.
And drum and bass in Bristol was really big. We had lots of crews putting off, so we had big parties, and it was quite like accessible. So it wasn't just, especially in the mid 90s, in the like 95, 96, I suppose what I'm saying.
Right, okay.
94 was real jungle, ragga jungle, and then it started to make the move into drum bass, 95, 96. People were just calling it drum bass or drum and bass jungle by that point. And it's all the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just what you call it. It's all the same thing. It just got called drum and bass. People started to refer to it as drum and bass and take out a lot of the ragga samples to be able to kind of sell it as a new genre that wasn't jungle.
Yes, I know exactly.
And then a lot of people only heard those records, which were also, you got this thing which the records became more stripped down. So you could blend them together and an MC could MC over the top of them without there being a whole load of vocals that they were then having to wait for or then MC over the top of, and that sounded weird. So you got a lot of producers started to make tracks for themselves to DJ, or it just kind of went along the way of like these long tracky tracks that had long intros, drops.
Right, okay.
Then you could make big passages with no vocals or nothing, because then the MC, and it's quite regular.
That makes so much sense, because Aphrodite has so much of that space, and obviously he did produce hip hop as well. Am I right in saying?
I don't know. I mean, I probably in the early days he was doing loads of stuff. I mean, you know, think about Kevin. Aphrodite is Kevin, not Gavin.
I don't know.
But either way, Aphrodite.
Yeah.
He.
I just called him Lord and Savior.
Yeah. He was around long time.
Yeah.
So
time.
some of his early stuff is really jungly.
Aladdin, right? That was his original jungle project.
Possibly, yeah. And there's a few others I can't really remember now.
Yeah.
But there's a few 12s. You can get them all off his website now, and they're really jungly. They're really hardcore and out into jungle and proper jungle, like booming amens and and loads of ragga samples. And then as he moved in to do Aphrodite and the urban takeover stuff, it became much more stripped back and much more two-step.
Yes,
and he really got into this sound that he really developed of his own.
Yeah, my brother describes it as, I remember showing him that, and he described it as Ross Geller music. Yeah. Do you remember Ross and Friends had the keyboard, and he was like, seagull noises.
Seagull noises, basically. And it's very simple, and that's not because he can't do the amazing, intricate jungle stuff, because look at this, anything like A-Zone.
A-Zone.
Yeah, one of his early nom de plumes. So early Aphrodite A-Zone, A-hyphen-Z-O-N-E.
You can't curse on this podcast, man.
That's all good. And he go check those out if you wanna realize, the kind of stuff he was capable of and he was doing. So in many ways, he'd gone through that. And so what he was doing with the jump up stuff was like leading his way, because it really worked for what he was doing. With MC over the top of it, everyone just goes nuts. You just got these bouncy stuff, loads of bass. Yeah. And there's so much bass in those records.
Yeah.
And it really makes sense on a system. It's not so much coming off a tinny laptop. You're a bit like, oh, what's that? Yeah. And a lot of hip hop samples.
Big time.
And a lot of jungle stuff and drum and bass. Then instead of ragga samples, they started to use hip hop samples.
Yeah.
And then you've got other crews outside of Bristol, like Ganja Crew and Urban.
Sorry, that's my bottle.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I wasn't
like, wait. we have a.
I wasn't just doing a really long, high pitched squeal of a fart.
Just
I could sample that.
Yeah. Wow,
that's the new jump up.
Down, it's like biggest fucking foghorn. And so Bristol was awash with drum and bass nights and drum and bass stuff, and that was in the record shops. It was the music that was new. It was cool. There was house, there was techno if you wanted. Of course, they served that. There were house and techno nights, but I got into drum and bass.
Gotcha.
And I got into that wobbly Bristol Rollers stuff, and just kind of loved it and wanted to work out how it was made, and I wanted to DJ it, and I was buying the records and listening to the tape packs from these nights that I wasn't old enough to go to, and all of this kind of stuff.
Right.
So then as I got into college, I was still interested in that, following the scene, trying to
Were you DJing at this stage?
Not really. I mean, I was kind of collecting records, but I had nowhere to DJ. I had a
That's coming out on the mic, by the way. Sorry, apologies.
I had a set of turntables, so I used to mix in my bedroom. Belt Drive Sound Labs.
Nice one. Happy days.
Oh, yeah. If you can mix on them, you can mix on anything.
You've never used the Pioneer 1000s with the SD drive.
No, I haven't. I mean,
because they do not work.
No. Oh. Early digital decks. That's a subject let's not get into. So I then decided, whilst I was at school, that I realised that you could go and do a college course in music technology, and learning how to produce,
and waste all your money doing it. Amazing.
Well, it was no money; it was all funded. So
happy days.
Yeah, I'm poor, so that meant that I qualified for funding. So
you
I didn't pay for
bastard.
It was mostly just whether or not my parents were going to let me,
right? Yeah,
to go and pursue something that ultimately wasn't really going to make any money. Right? It's not like oh, darling.
Yeah.
Can't you just be a doctor like all the rest of it? But luckily my family is very artistic and is very caring.
Your mother's
my mum's a poet and my dad's a carpenter, amongst many other things. But
wow,
yeah. But there's a lot of kind of artistic stuff, certainly on my mum's side, and she is. So
she's a published author.
She is a published author. Yes, writer and poet and MA teaching. She teaches at Bar University. She teaches creative writing.
She's good on her. Happy days.
Yeah, she is now a professor.
Holy moly.
Or a doctor, having done her PhD. So she's done a PhD.
Holy moly.
I know, right?
Like a bad guy, They got the doctor title. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure whether or not she's got all her cards changed, so it says doctor on all of them. But
I would. Man,
I would.
See, right? Absolutely, man. I would. I'll put that I put that on my car like that boxer.
God damn. Yes, Doctor of Poetry. But so in the talks with my parents about what I wanted to do was I want to do music. There is a way that we can do it. There's this course at college. If I get onto it, I can study it. So they're like, okay,
class,
go for it.
Sorry, was that in Bristol University?
That's in Bristol. So that was at City of Bristol College. So in the UK, you're at school, normal 9 to 5 school, Monday, Friday, until you do your qualification called a GCSE.
Yeah.
General Certificate of Secondary Education.
For all you Irish paddies out there, that's called the Leaving Cert.
There you go.
There you know.
And at that stage, you are like
Oh no, wait,
16,
that's the A levels.
17.
Sorry, that's the junior, sir. I'm sorry. I'm a fucking
This is what I mean,
teacher,
this is
man.
before, so,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so GCSE in the UK. GCSE is pre-A levels.
That's junior cert in Ireland. I literally am a teacher.
You are a teacher.
And I did not know.
Fuck it, it's fine. It's always complicated, and it's changed over the years because they don't study that anymore. They do other things. So I don't, and the way it was graded is now not A star. A. It's now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or something. I'm like,
Oh yeah.
means nothing.
It's so funny. Yeah, everyone just has they go, oh, I got a 2. What does that mean?
What does that mean? Oh, right. Okay. It means an A star. Oh, yeah. Great. You're like, why don't you just name it like that? So I realised there was a course in Bristol. It was considered quite good. It was very hands-on. So they teach you studio. They teach you everything there is to know about the studio and
Brilliant.
Can produce music. And at the end, you would come out with a BTEC that was equivalent to 2 A levels.
And what was the name of the course?
The course was Music Technology BSc. No, not BSc. BTEC. BTEC National Diploma in Music Technology.
That's a mouthful. And was it more...
2-year course.
2-year course. And was it concentrating more on engineering or actual producing? This was
engineering and production. So it was less on... there wasn't really a kind of music element.
Right.
So in the college course, we didn't really study music.
Okay.
It was mostly about recording music
Gotcha.
or sounds or whatever, sampling, that kind of stuff.
Sounds
so it was
similar to the course I did in music technology.
So it was very much, there were briefs and assignments.
Yeah.
There were assignments, and those assignments consisted of a practical element, which would be the track.
Right.
And then a written element, which would be what you did to get that track.
Gotcha.
And your theory and thoughts behind it. I was never very good at that bit, but I always enjoyed the practical side.
And this is around 2006, 2007?
No, this is 99.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to figure out how old you are.
I'm 83 is born, so...
Gotcha, yeah.
39-ish. I'll be 39 in June.
Gotcha. All right, yeah. Okay,
year.
So you were you were kind of young going into...
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Right, so I got the 90s, right? So I was growing up right in the kind of
in the
middle of the mid-90s of that. So that key period when you're listening to the first stuff that, that was me.
Gotcha. And
walking up and down Park Street, going to all the cool record shops. So let's shout out the record shops that I was going to. So there was Replay Records. There were 2. There was one called Replay. In fact, there were 3, but Replay Records was a big one in Bristol, big independent. They had 2 shops down by the bus station, used to be.
Okay.
There was one downstairs that was called Replay. And then there was one upstairs that was called Replay Dance.
Oh, wow.
And that's what I was interested in. And that was a very small shop, the interior of which was painted entirely in matte black emulsion paint.
Of course it was.
Right. Then covered with his flyers and posters.
Sick.
Then in the corner, there were, of course, some bomber jackets or some T-shirts and a kind of shoddy rack, maybe with some secondhand records on it.
Class.
But most of the action was going on behind the counter. So there'd be a big counter, and then behind the counter is where all the new releases were hung up.
Sick.
So you would have to go in and be quite like, can I listen to that one?
Gotcha,
And at a young age, it was a bit like, but it was fucking cool.
Yeah.
And it was all, and you could smoke in there.
God bless the 90s.
So the counter would have listening decks set up. So you could pick out some records or ask to listen to some records. They would then give them to you. You would then set yourself up on a listening deck, listen through to them with the ashtray next to it, so you could have a fag whilst you were doing it.
Do a bump.
Hey, I'm sure people were probably smoking spliffs more likely.
Oh yeah.
And then you would give back what you didn't want, and then you would then buy for what you wanted. And if you had a relationship with the guy behind the counter, he may put aside records for you.
Right.
The big DJs all used to have boxes. They all used to take care of their regulars, and they'd have boxes with bags in. And as the records would come in, the people behind the counter, the people that knew the DJs, would maybe slip some of the test presses and some of the new stuff in. So then the DJ would come and they would say, "Oh, what have you got?" And they'd get out the bag and then give it to them. They'd listen to it all and either buy all of it or most of it or none of it, and rinse and repeat. And that's how the big boys would do it.
I was just about to say that's what an exclusive club.
Yes, yeah. And you as a buyer, like a young kind of like, I
want to be that guy. I want the secret box.
Watching DJ Crust come in and Deli G come in and all these people, all these Bristol legends and all these different shops. Replay Dance was there for a while, and then they moved up to Park Street, which is and and they were installed in Park Street, and they kind of combined. So they had a bit of secondhand, a bit of indie stuff, and then all the dance music things. So that was quite nice because on Park Street you also had independent records, which was Tony's Records before then. Then it was independent records, and that was nice because again it was a lot of new stock. It was a bit like Rough Trade, could be. But imagine a slightly rougher version of Rough Trade.
Gotcha. Oh wow, that's very rough.
Yeah, but kind of fun. It's not all perfect and all everything. Everything's a little bit, but lots of nice secondhand. A few people working behind the counter. Some people specialize in something. So if you're looking for things, you might talk to one particular guy.
Gotcha. Who was the drum bass guy there?
Chris, actually. It was. I mean, when it came to drum and bass, you would go to the shops that specialized for drum and bass. So there were at least two. Well, there was one really. There was. It was the Roughneck Ting Crew. They opened a shop out the back of a cool clothes shop called Kushti, which is still there on Park Street. And out the back, in the back room, they turned that into a record shop and called it Breakbeat Culture.
Class. Culture with a K, no doubt.
No, with a C.
What?
Yeah, with a C.
What is this?
I know, right? And they ran their Roughneck Ting record label and then the Breakbeat Culture record label.
Oh, cool.
Out of the back. They have offices there that they also used to run their nights, and they did other things. They were called Ledge Entertainment, so they had their fingers in a few pies. Essentially, what went on to be Knowledge Magazine.
Oh, wow.
From what I know, Colin from Knowledge Magazine was involved with that. I'm not sure how closely, but certainly that's the direction that ultimately some of the guys who were involved in Roughneck Ting and Breakbeat Culture were then involved in Knowledge Magazine, because it started as a free magazine.
Right. Okay.
The little tiny thing that had record reviews and kind of like flyers and upcoming stuff. I have one. I have a copy of the first one.
Wow, cool, man.
They also made a mistake. They didn't make a mistake. They have got some advertisers, and one of the advertisers was Richer Sounds, which is a hi-fi shop.
All right.
A kind of cheap but cool hi-fi shop.
Gotcha.
But they also sold cassette tapes.
Oh, cool.
Right? Blank cassettes. And on their flyers, they said, please bring this flyer for one free, and we'll give you one free blank cassette tape.
Oh, God.
But they didn't mention that you couldn't have more than one.
Oh, hello.
So me and my friends fucking rinsed it. So I think that to a point where they banned us from coming in, or they were just like, no.
Wow.
But I had like 10.
Because they're free magazines, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you guys are genius, man.
And they delivered these free magazines to all the record shops around Bristol.
Oh my God.
So me and my friends went round to pick them all up.
That is.
I cut out all the coupons and then took them one by one.
Did you go in with little disguises every time?
I mean, that was the point. We were stupid. We just ruined it quite quickly. But some people talk to us.
This is why we can't have nice things.
That's why we can't have nice things. But also, I'm wondering how much of an effect that had on Knowledge Magazine, thinking that they had a really big readership.
They never, ever advertise ever again.
They've all gone. Like, wow, they must absolutely love this, right? I mean, honestly. But they went on to really good things. But yeah, I think we literally cleaned the place out one month with all of them. And that was the first one. So they probably gave them a real kind of like, hey, people are really into this.
That is so
But honestly, the magazine was brilliant. So it wasn't like, and maybe I feel bad for denying some people that they might have been able to read it, because, we didn't cut out the cassette tapes and then put them back. We cut out the cassette tape coupons and then chucked them in the bin. I think we recycled them. Hopefully. But we got caught quite quickly.
Man, recycling wasn't invented back
then. And it
then.
wasn't all of them. It wasn't hundreds, and I'm sure they printed hundreds. But yeah, there was quite a few of them that we
That is so funny.
That we pinched just so we could get this coupon for a free cassette tape. And they advertised again in the future. The next month it came out, and there was a Richer Sounds advert, and in the advert it said 1 tape per customer in big letters.
Right.
And we were like,
you. God damn, that is hilarious.
But we discovered it was the rave tapes that were really it. Roughneck Ting produced their own series of rave cassette tapes. In fact, hang on 1 second.
No way, Javin. By the way, for all the viewers, we're just surrounded by vinyl equipment, tapes.
Behind the camera is all the fun stuff. You're just looking at the wall, but never mind.
Would you look at that Lakota?
So that was one I picked up from Breakbeat Culture.
Probably can't see it. It doesn't matter.
But you can, for those that aren't watching, you can.
Let's go.
Oh yeah.
We can hear it.
That sounds
wow.
I don't know. I played it quite recently, actually.
Yeah.
So this one is, it's Rough Dictator Lakota, and it's DJ Hype with MC Jakes.
Class.
I think it's is it the whole tape? Because sometimes they split the tapes. Yeah. So this one is DJ Hype on one side.
Yeah.
And DJ Daisy, who's Bristol legend, still going, on the other. Both with MC Jakes, both recorded live
Lakota.
In May 1996.
Wow.
So I had ones from 94. They were putting parties on from 94, but yeah, this is a 96 one. So it's full of 1996 DJ Hype classics.
Class.
With him scratching all over the top of it.
Oh, that's it.
Hype, DJ Hype.
Did I tell you about my recent DJ Hype escapade?
Oh no, go on. You might have done, but I can't remember.
My roommate was like, "Oh, DJ Hype is playing in Bristol next week." I was like, "Oh, let's go! Happy days, let's go!" It was in the Black Swan. So now,
yeah.
You see, you see where we're going with this? So
it's for those that don't know, the Black Swan is a Bristol institution.
Is it?
It is.
See, I knew nothing about it. Right,
it's an institution.
So I queued up and I asked the guy running the night. I was like, "Oh, what time is DJ Hype's on?" He's like, "DJ Hype." I was like, yeah, DJ Hype's playing. He's like, "In the Black Swan?"
Yeah,
and I was like,
playing in the Black Swan.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what he said. I said, "Man, it's DJ Hybrid."
You're like, oh,
DJ Hybrid.
I'm in for a night of quite cool new school breaks.
Yeah, well, look, I quite like DJ Hybrid anyway. So
Hybrid was great, and is that hybrid from that breaks era early days? Cramp.
No, yeah, sorry, Cramp.
That's all right.
I don't think so.
It's a different DJ Hybrid.
I think
because there was a guy called
Hybrid.
Hybrid, who did an album and a couple of albums. They were what you would call new school breaks.
Yeah,
very kind of cinematic, expansive,
ethereal, ambient jungle stuff.
Yeah, kind of breakbeaty stuff. But yeah. No, it's not him.
No, okay. And that's kind of like Bailey stuff, I suppose. They're kind of even more. No, he's more
like drum and bass.
Yeah, like proper jump up drum bass. Now, I always thought it was the same dude. Yeah. So
that's the DJ. You see, people if they put DJ in it, it's not always the person that doesn't have it, right?
Which is cheating.
Yeah.
So
because the other one specifically doesn't have DJ. So Hybrid is not DJ Hybrid. He's Hybrid.
And Hybrid Minds is.
It's something
that's not even gonna start. What's up with people doing to drum bass liking the words hybrid? Or there's always like, something like I do you know what? You get a kick out of this. We're organizing a drum bass gig in Dublin.
Yes.
And we were just talking about like we've got like 8 acts or whatever playing and me and Isabel and my friend Joey, they both have ADHD and they were like, God, like, well, we're so ADHD, and I was like, 90% of this lineup is ADHD. Like, I was like, we should have called the night like neurodivergent, instead of neurofunk.
What do you like? Yeah, I really like my neurodivergent D&B, man. Autistic step.
But it's going to be like, nobody's going to be drinking. We're all going to be taking Adderall.
And it's going to be the craziest night you've ever fucking had.
But our concentration will be amazing.
It's amazing.
Oh, man.
Laser focused for like the whole of 10 hours.
But anyway, sorry. Let's get back to yourself. So DJ Hype, Daisy.
DJ Hype, Daisy, 1996. So I had to pick that up around that time.
Gotcha.
And actually what's really interesting is listening back, there were 2 DJs who were instrumental in my listening, whose tapes, because I wasn't old enough for going out yet, whose tapes that I listened to that influenced me the most were both female DJs.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Right? Which is because I've always wondered why people have an issue with female DJs.
Yeah.
They fucking do.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah.
I think I'm like, what? They can't mix. What do you mean? What do you not? And then I realized that.
First of all, especially in 2022, because anyone can mix.
It's just all bullshit arguments. Bullshit arguments.
I think the main problem is
misogyny.
Okay.
No, that is the main problem.
I think arguments that I've heard from people who say stuff like that is they generally have a problem with a lot of ghost producers.
Yes.
And in their minds,
because they give no value to women.
Sorry?
They give no value. They assign no value to women, right? So they think they see a female DJ doing well, and they think, it must be.
Yeah.
And if there is another thing that happens, which you may not even know this happens, but it happens a lot, which is if a woman, producer, artist, DJ, anything, collaborates in any way with a male, then everyone will just talk about it as if the bloke did everything.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Crazily.
Yeah.
I mean, I found myself even doing that. So in an example that where I was like, first I was like, oh, it was Bjork.
Oh no, man! What?
So Bjork,
yeah,
right? Just it wasn't that I even thought about it until I thought about it. But Bjork is known for her collaborations.
Yeah,
right. She's done loads of collaborations on her albums. She's worked with loads of artists, different albums, different artists, and over the years,
Robert Eggers. She was in the Norseman.
yeah, exactly. There's all kind of people she's worked with, and they're like, and there's one which was Matt Moss.
Who's Matt Moss? No,
they're an act.
Right.
They're a duo. They were kind of like electronica.
Oh yeah, cool.
Right.
Love it.
90s electronica stuff. They're really good.
Cool.
She worked with them on one of her albums, and they did some percussion on one or two of the tunes.
Right. Yeah.
Right. She did everything else.
Yeah.
Like and when I say everything else, like she's moving the mouse. Right.
Yeah. That means a lot.
Right? She's doing everything. Yeah, she's moving the fucking mouse.
No,
she's the engineer, producer, and writer and creator of all of that music. Yeah. Oh, no. And she's collaborating with Matt Moss, and they do some, let's do some percussion, and she's added it to the track. Right? Great, amazing, wicked. What came out and from what I read was like Matt Moss wrote the whole album with Bjork.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And every single article that you read was like just assume what Matt Moss was doing was like writing the whole album, and Bjork was just sitting there going, "Oh, that sounds nice."
Yeah. Well, you see, that's
she talked about it. She talked about it years later, just saying how it pissed her off, how the fact that every time she does something with a bloke, everyone just assumes that the blokes are just doing everything and she's done nothing. And she's like, "I fucking wrote the album, did everything," and they're just talking about my contribution as if it's nothing. And I've talked to other women over the years about this phenomenon.
Yeah.
And they're just like,
out of all the problems,
it's really annoying.
Out of all the people to point fingers at as well, Bjork is not the hill to die on whatsoever, because she's most definitely known as being the engineer producer. Like, she's always been known as.
But even when I was growing up listening to Bjork stuff and listening to it and reading all the articles, it still comes off as like.
Yeah. I understand why that is as well,
right? Though, because that's just it's so ingrained and inbuilt that just blokes do it all and girls are just the artists and they sing, right? The amount of artists who they've sampled a vocal on a track that they've made, and oh wow, did you sing that?
Yeah.
What? I'm not a singer. I'm the fucking producer.
Well, that's the thing. To play devil's advocate as well, I think a lot of it plays into when people see singers as the main artist, and rightfully so, because the majority of singers who are don't produce their own stuff. And
there's that too. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And a lot of it is just because it's uncommon.
Yes,
so people just have their natural biases over just like it's uncommon, so you don't think like that, so you just kind of ask that question. And you're not asking that question out of spite because you can't think she'd done it. You're asking that just because it's more common for the female for the vocal you're hearing, if there is a project with a woman in it, then she is the singer.
The singer, yes, most definitely, yeah.
Right, but it's also you're fucking stupid because all you need to do is just read, instead of ask a dumb question.
Yeah,
right.
But
that's just...
It was the same with Michael Jackson though as well. Like a lot of people never credit him for being like an unbelievable producer.
Yes,
and not just I don't mean as in because the term as well is a bit confusing, because producer back in the day was the guy in the back with the cigar going, a bit more drums or a bit more whatever.
And the engineer was the person twiddling the knobs.
Exactly. Where now it's completely producer is pretty much
part of the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing. But people don't understand that Michael Jackson actually was a very good engineer as well.
He was.
Do you know what I mean?
What's really interesting is you hear the demo recordings of the early Michael Jackson stuff.
Now we're talking about.
He did it all at home with a fucking little tiny recorder.
There you go.
It's just like playing all the percussion on bottles and shit.
Yeah.
It's like, wow. Yeah. Oh, okay. And he used to hum all the stuff.
I can't believe
people that work with him how he used to get you to do stuff if you collaborated with him is he would just hum it all into. He'd sing all the parts and all the harmonies and everything into a just little portable cassette recorder, and then you would listen to that.
I'm glad you said little cassette recorder, not little something else. I can't believe I'm here defending Michael Jackson.
Let's not.
Let's move on. Let's get back to you.
Let's move on. Bad people can do good things, but that doesn't stop them from being bad people, right?
There you go. Words to live by. Borai. So what you're saying is you think he's completely innocent. Is that what
Shut up. I have no confidence. No, I don't know. I do not know, to be honest. I've watched all films, read everything.
Let's get out of this.
Let's get out of this horrible conversation that we've put ourselves into. So back to drum and bass in Bristol.
Yes, exactly. So when did you start producing?
Producing when I was at college.
Okay.
So that would have been, I was like 17, 18.
Gotcha.
So that would have been 99 to 2000 or 2002. I mean, I think I finished school in 99.
Right.
So I then went to college 99, 2000.
Gotcha.
Then went to uni first year in Leeds in 2001.
Oh, Leeds.
I went to 1 year in Leeds.
What'd
So I
you
finished the course in Bristol and I thought, yeah, I want to go to university to do music technology.
Yeah.
The course I was on in Bristol, they kind of set it up as to be a feeder course onto this quite prestigious music technology course at Bath Spa.
Oh, yeah, cool.
So we all went for the interview and they took on 2 people from my year. So we were all a bit like, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You kind of sold it to us as like, we're all going on to the course.
How many people were in your year?
10 or
Right,
20,
okay.
15 or something, maybe a few more.
Gotcha, yeah.
But it was a bit like, oh.
Shit.
And they were a bit like, oh, yeah, sorry. Normally they take more people, but obviously they must have some good candidates from elsewhere. So I was a little despondent by not getting into the course I wanted to. But at the time, I also applied to Leeds because
Gotcha.
that was considered quite a good course. Leeds was considered a cool place.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, you know, why not? And they accepted me and
Yeah.
offered me a place. So I thought, okay, Bath Spa, fuck off.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Let's go to Leeds.
Yeah.
But what kind of happened is I just got a crew in Bristol.
Gotcha.
I just got to know. So that record shop that I was talking about, Breakbeat Culture,
Yeah.
the history of that shop was it was started by people behind Roughneck Ting.
Yeah.
It was then, and behind a clothes shop on Park Street. It then moved to a road adjacent to Park Street, just at the top, called Park Row Avenue, I think it was called. It's a little cut-through road. Just
Right.
on the corner, and it's a little basement, so it'd be a shop. You know, door. You go down
Base
a set of
spelled with
steps.
2 S's, by the way.
Oh yeah, basement. You go down a set of stairs, and then there was a tiny little room,
Yeah.
and a counter,
All right.
and that's what the shop was. And then behind there was a door that led to a studio
Gotcha.
where Decoder and Substance, for a period of time, had their studio.
Class.
They rented it out to other people. Then they eventually moved into it.
Right.
And over that time, the shop went through a couple of people running it. So before, when I first went to it, when it was MC Jake's behind the counter and some others.
Wow.
And then it moved. And then there was a guy called DJ XS, Stevie XS, who was a local Bristol DJ.
Right.
Played a lot of free parties.
Cool.
Ran a record label called 24/7 Recordings. Was very kind of like, at this point, it was quite techie, gnarly,
Right, yeah.
two-steppy stuff.
Kind of Ed Rush vibes.
Kind of, but more kind of Amen Slammers. But yeah, certainly that kind of thing. Not quite as twisted as that, but
Gotcha.
definitely inspired
On
by
the
that
verge
kind of
to
that
it.
techie sound.
Yeah.
That's techie sound.
Which is
but
kinda-
also again, Full Cycle doing their bouncy roller stuff as well,
Right,
and,
okay.
and Breakbeat Culture doing their that you put in their own stuff, plus other labels in Bristol as well and other artists.
Yeah.
And so they kind of ran for a bit. Then essentially what happened was kind of someone took their eye off the ball. It stopped. It kind of fell to the wayside.
Well-
And then essentially what happened was my friends, I went in there one day and there was a whole new people.
Wow.
So Steve XS wasn't there
Yeah.
and there was someone else.
Mm.
So I was like, oh. And so it turns out that they'd kind of taken it on,
Right, okay.
taken on the name and ran the shop. So this was a group of people who were at college together, were all friends.
Right.
And they were putting on a night.
Hmm.
And
What
I
was it
got
called?
Timecode.
Timecode.
And so the people involved were Ed Decoy, Rich Rapid, so DJ Rapid, DJ Decoy, a chap called
A lot of
October, DJ
alliteration
October.
here.
Yeah, drum and bass in it.
Out of October. Yeah, there you
Yeah,
go.
yeah. Jules October, who's
Yeah.
still a good friend of mine now.
And you were a bouncy virus.
I can't even remember. I think I was the assassin at that point.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Or something else.
I think the only person who's pulling off like cheesy names like that is Samurai Breaks.
I think so.
You know,
Certainly now.
certainly now, yeah. It was a lot easier to do it back then, you know.
Yeah.
But not so much
name's
anymore.
a really difficult one. And
DJ
so I
Ninja.
kind of went in there and it was a whole new crew of people. So
Yeah.
suddenly there was a kind of...
And
I got
it's-
chatting to them and they seemed really nice. So I kept going in there and I kept chatting to them and then I became friends.
Cool.
And
And you set up a little crew with them? What was that called?
I got invited into the Timecode Crew.
Wow. Cool.
So
cool.
I kind of became, I became part of their crew. And at that point, a lot of the people who I had gone to school with, I stopped because they were all into emo rock.
Right,
I
yeah.
was,
I was just
bass.
about to say, like, this is kind of a dark period in drum and bass, really.
Yeah. It's a little bit lost in the kind of way. It's a little bit in the weeds.
A lot of schisms. Was this even
very sausage festy? Very blokey. A lot of what was cool in the
post garage drum and bass.
Yeah, basically, yeah. It was kind of the post garage drum and bass scene. And at the time, I was very much in the drum and bass camp and not in the garage camp. So it was all about
how the tables have turned. You were just playing me a few of your demos.
Oh, mate, and they're all garage. I'm releasing garage UP, so. And I love it. You know, I got loads of garage records, and I love that stuff. But it's
the
I've had to come around to it.
Was just.
No, the 17-year-old me was just like, no, I'm not going to listen to Boo by Miss Dynamite. I was working at Virgin Megastore at the time, and so these records all came in, and I was just like, and it was a little bit like, oh, well, yeah, but still, drum bass.
Yeah.
Because we're doing our crew, and I got a crew, and we're doing that thing. Right. So I got to know these guys who were putting on nights, who were looking, you know, they were doing this thing where suddenly there were other people who were making the music that I wanted to make.
Yeah.
You know, so I could compare my stuff with people, I could get advice from people. It was suddenly this like, wow.
Yeah.
And then I moved 300 miles away to Leeds. And I was like,
fuck.
Oh, shit. And realised that, like, actually, I want to be back in Bristol again.
Right.
I wasn't getting on the course. Because I'd made breaks in Bristol, I wasn't really looking to make friends in Leeds.
Oh.
So, I mean, there were a few people that I chatted to at the time, but I was in a hall's residence a bit on my own, a bit like, there was a couple other people. I went to a few nights.
Yeah. What was popping off at Leeds there?
Drum bass.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I mean, it was at this kind of point. Dubstep hadn't happened yet.
I was just thinking, this is
the point. It's this kind of like 2001, 2002, 2003. Yeah. So what was happening was.
So the underground
was the end of my kind of involvement in drum and bass, and a lot of people's, I think. It was a bit sausage festy. It was a bit gnarly. It was a bit like, you know, not what I liked. It wasn't bouncy enough. It didn't have the cool stuff to it.
Yeah.
And a lot of this stuff I just didn't like. And we were like starting to bond over the fact that the stuff we didn't like, as opposed there were more tunes that we didn't like than there were tunes that we liked.
The definition of a brand community there.
And my friends had already stopped running this record shop. I kind of took it on. So what happened is Marky Substance and Dakota took it back over. They had their studio out the back.
All right.
And so I then was working in it when I was about 17 whilst I was at college.
Wow.
Because my friends just like it just didn't work. Just, you know, fair play. They're like 18, 19 years old trying to run a record shop. It's hard work.
I mean, yeah.
I don't really.
I could barely beat Kingdom Hearts 2 when I was 18.
It's so I'm, you know, but they put on some amazing parties, and so they wanted to concentrate doing that. So they stopped in the shop. I ended up working in the shop in the last days of it being there because essentially they kind of kept it open so they could have their studio out the back.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
It was kind of like, and they managed to wangle to get some records from a distributor, so I didn't really get a choice in what I was selling, and it was just, but for me, it was a place with a big set of decks and a sound system.
It's where you want to be when you're that age.
Play fucking drum and bass records all day. And smoke weed outside and chat to people who were coming in. So it was kind of fun, right? Yeah. It was fun.
And you could do it. It was the time of your life.
And I could do it in my life. I could do it. I got paid pittance, but it didn't matter because I was having so much fun. I kind of did it for free.
Baby.
Yeah. And then when I went to university, that's kind of when the shop shut because they didn't have anyone to run it.
Okay.
So they stopped running it as a shop and just kept it on as a studio. At that point, they were also getting very successful with their Coshin. They did a track called Hide You. They ended up going worldwide.
Wait a minute. Any relation to Joe Cushion? No. Okay.
No, totally different. Spelt differently as well.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, older. Yeah, it's a whole kind of like.
I love that guy.
You know, tracks your mum likes.
Gotcha.
It's that kind of stuff. They had a lot of success, kind of in Eastern Europe and in that part of the world. So
wait. When you say tracks my mum likes.
That's not necessarily your mum, but you know what I mean.
I know, but sorry, what genre? What are we talking?
It's kind of breakbeat and drum and bass,
right? Okay.
Right, but it was marketed as a kind of love. They went on tour with Faithless.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Wow.
So it's that kind of
class. Good on them.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they did really well.
Happy days.
Happy days. So it was all vocals and it was all singing. They had a singer and they would do their big on stage stadium style thing.
Sorry.
No, but they ended up going on tour with that's how I saw them in Leeds. I got a lot of kudos when I was in Leeds because Faithless came to town and Coshin were on the bill,
and
I knew backstage. The boys, so I got guest lists.
Class.
And also one of the guys that I was living with was a massive Faithless fan, so I was just like, "Hey Steve, do you want to come and do guest lists for the fucking gig?" Man. And he was like, "What?" I was like, "Yes, mate."
Oh, that's sick. Yeah,
I got you down. I forgot the fucking names on the list. Let's go. So I took him for his first ever guest list experience to go and see Faithless, and he loved it. It was brilliant. I got us brownie points for that one.
Absolutely.
which was great. And then, so I then hung out with the boys afterwards. That was actually the night that Faithless played. The very next day was when the guy, Jazzy, whatever his name is, he got in a car crash.
Oh, fuck.
And broke his hip. So
my
they
God.
had to stop the tour. But it was
Whoa,
the
no
night
way.
before that.
Whoa.
The next day was when it happened.
Did you, I don't know,
I didn't know nothing. I didn't even.
Did you meet them, did you?
No, I didn't meet them. 'Cause,
you were the guy
big.
twiddling with his fucking brakes.
No. They were big stars at that point.
Yeah,
So
of course.
and the people I knew were the support. So it was like Faithless were already kind of like in their van on their way off by the time that I ended up hanging out. But we ended up going out to a night out and kind of But it was great fun. It was brilliant. It was absolute hoot. So yeah,
Did they still have stuff online, Kochi? Speaking of hits,
yeah. You can. I'm sure it's all on Spotify. You can just.
Sorry, I'm so fat and cramping. Sorry.
No, that's all right. No, please,
I banged myself up at snow bombing.
This sofa isn't particularly the most.
It's creepy. I'm just gonna cramp here. I'm gonna turn off my mic and scream, but you keep talking.
We'll get the. We'll get the chiropodist. No, not the chiropodist. The other.
I'm so fucking fat.
Mate, it's fine.
What happened? I used to be good looking, man.
I'm at age time, mate.
Oh, God damn.
Fucks you up. Come on.
And obviously, living in Bristol for a while, like constantly going out as well.
Yeah,
that's the other problem. It'll do that to you.
Do it to you. Yeah, it's quite bad. So yeah, college was when I started to produce. I just got to know this group of people. We were all starting to do music. I went up to Leeds. I didn't enjoy it as much as I was enjoying Bristol. Everyone was like, "Oh, you love Leeds because it's the Bristol in the north," and it is. But I'm from Bristol.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So I was like, hasn't got a patch on, and so I came back to Bristol,
right?
And basically got onto that bar spa course.
Gotcha.
That I couldn't get on first time, so I applied as a mature student.
Oh,
and I basically.
How old are you?
Like 22. I mean, the mature student's 22. It's like,
wow,
yeah. Because I'd already done a year, so I was able to apply as. I'm not in. I can't remember if I applied as a mature student, but because I was
more
applying,
like an immature student, am I right?
Yeah,
hey,
but because
guy.
I was applying early, I was able to get in,
right,
and get my application in.
Oh, of course, because you kind of graduated early enough, right?
Well, it was also because it was only in the first year, so before the end of the first year, I decided that I wasn't going to stay in Leeds, so I was then able to apply to Bath, and I was able to apply before anyone else had got their results.
Great, happy days.
And I was applying not on the fact that that was the mature student thing, was that I could apply with just my college grades.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And the portfolio.
Yeah.
And I basically provided them with a portfolio of exactly what they wanted to hear.
And you absolutely smashed it.
Smashed it.
Rock and roll.
And I got on the course. Which was great. So then I moved back to Bristol to come and do that. So I moved back home. Cool. I didn't have the money to move out, and I didn't know anyone at that point.
I still don't.
Hey, mate, fuck. That was the beginning. It was the beginning of the end. That.
Yeah.
So then I did the first year in the bar spa course, but the first year at that course wasn't actually done in Bath Spa.
Right. Okay.
They have a fancy campus just outside Bristol, really big, right in the countryside. It's quite lovely. But
Gotcha.
they did years 2 and 3 there. The first year was done in an outlying sixth form college.
Okay.
So there were 3 places you could do it. There were places in Bristol.
Right.
Places in the city of Bath.
Yeah.
Places in Weston-super-Mare.
Yes.
Which is the college.
Which is where all the cheap rent is.
Yes.
But I realise it's very, very far away.
Yes. And it's a shithole.
Spare room, you lied to me.
Yeah. No,
Weston-super-Mare
is not Bristol.
Really,
There's several villages in between Bristol.
Oh, wow. Okay,
it's a different city. Yeah.
More like Western, not Super-Mare, am I right?
Yeah,
hey, this guy, comedy, geez.
And it's a classic British seaside town. So
cool.
Avoid like the plague. And unless you're on holiday.
Right.
You don't need to be there.
Yeah. I can just imagine. It seems very grey in my head. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Bill Bryson, if you ever read any of the Bill Bryson books, he's an American journalist who...
You've got a copy of Bryson up there.
There is. There's one up there. Yeah, that's
there
the one about his body. He did one that's called Travels Around England, which is him kind of going around England with his like American slant on English stuff.
Oh, wow.
And it was like years ago as well. So it's like he's going around England in the 80s or something. They're really good. Man. They're really, really, really good.
It's just
really good. He's got
everywhere.
great things to say about Weston. Grey is definitely one of them.
Yeah.
So there was Weston, and then there was Bridgewater, which is an even worse town.
Right.
I ended up getting a place in Weston-super-Mare. Okay. So that meant that I had to get to Weston-super-Mare.
Yeah.
But it turns out that there were other people who were living in Bristol, one of which drove.
Oh,
and so he was
hello.
prepared.
So you instantly became best friends with him.
Exactly that. Craig.
There you go.
We've just reconnected recently.
No
actually.
way. Good
Yeah,
stuff.
I need
Does
to
he
see him
still
again.
drive?
But I'm sure he does still drive.
Cool.
Yeah,
Good on.
yeah. He had he had quite a fancy.
And you
car
still
as well.
don't.
And I still don't. And so we used to do the run. It was here. It was me, him. I think it was Nick,
Right.
and maybe someone else. And he used to go past near where I lived, so I
Right.
used to go and walk up and meet him.
Class.
And jump in the car, and he'd met a couple of
Happy
others. So
days.
then we'd blast off to Western
Steady.
and give him some petrol money, of course.
Sure.
You know.
Sure. Don't need to lie on
Yeah,
this.
well,
No need
mate,
to
I mean,
lie.
he's not. I mean, you know, he wasn't driving without us fucking giving him any money, right?
Yeah, of course.
I wouldn't have got that lift. I
That's
hadn't paid my fair share of petrol money.
How far is the drive?
It's about half an hour. It was 20 minutes, half an hour.
Okay, it's
maybe
not
a bit
too bad.
more. It's not too bad. There's a main road that goes there, and
That's
and
grand,
we went
man.
there really early, so we didn't really get caught in traffic. It was always pretty. I never really. It
Yeah.
never felt like it was an issue.
Gotcha.
And the nice thing about it was actually the bit of they were in the art college, not
Right.
the big college. So there was a big college right in the centre of Western, and a big fuck off building full
Right.
of 16-year-olds.
Gotcha.
We're all like 18-year-olds.
So you're cool.
We're cool,
Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
But then we went to the art college,
Yeah.
which was up at the far end of the beach, up on top of the cliff, overlooking the old, which actually was beautiful.
Cool.
So once you got up there,
Yeah.
it was like really nice.
Nice one.
And it was really nice.
And I
place
see
to
you
be.
listen to the tunes.
And it
and the-
also turned out that the lecturer, the guy who ran that bit of the course,
Yeah.
Clive, he was called, can't remember his surname, but Clive, was an absolute don, and everyone loved him.
Cool.
Let's go, boys.